Blog Talk Radio.
Calling all men. It's now your time for your show with your coach, the Men's Advocate Show with Linda Gross. Relax, be heard, and be understood. It's a show where men can be men. Now here's the coach who has your back, Linda Gross.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Men's Advocate Show with me, your host, Linda Gross. I am pumped up and ready to tell you about today's show. We're going to be talking about this man who sues an elite matchmaker. Matchmakers, is that still a thing? I thought they went out with, it was pre-online dating. I thought they went out with the 80s, right? But apparently these people are still in business, so we're going to talk about what this guy's experience was, and let me know if you guys think he's nuts or justified. Well, while most people use online matchmaking apps to swipe right for high-profile individuals, though, navigating the dating world often means hiring a little help. Maybe they are too busy to do the search themselves, or maybe they're in the public eye and want to keep their search a little more private. You know how guys like their privacy. Well, today we are looking at a guy who sues his matchmaker for spending over $400,000. That's right, people. Almost halfway to $1 billion, right? On 6 dates, but still not finding love. So, is he nuts or is he justified? You make the call. All right, you can do so at 323-642-1677, 323-642-1677. All right, well, our Mr. X here sues this elite matchmaker after spending $426,000 on 6 dates and still failing to find love. Mr. X is from Manhattan and agreed to pay $35,000 in installments over 2 years worth of dates. All right, so this luxury dating service, which is based in Washington, D.C., claimed to have had an almost 100% success rate, with most clients finding themselves in a wonderfully committed relationships by the end of the second or third date. Wait a minute, people. Does sound a little far-fetched, right? If we had those good odds, we'd all be in Vegas tomorrow, right? Well, according to her website, this matchmaker's website, she helps elite professionals from senators and ambassadors to industry leaders and CEOs connect with high-quality men and women of their choice. However, for Mr. Businessman, Mr. X, that wasn't the case, and he is suing for a full refund. Now, last I checked, people were spending about $50,000 for these types of matches. Let's assume that the rates went up. Let's say he had installment payments of $35,000 per year for 2 years with a minimum of 3 dates per year. So that would be, let's do the math here, it would be $426,000 minus the $70,000, which is what he spent for the service over the 2 years. So that would mean that he spent $356,000 on the dates themselves. Now, the article said he had 6 dates. So what does that work out to be? About a little bit over $59,000 on each date. Shoot, what is that these days? One trip to Chanel? Well, If you guys who are listening are in this category, one of the most expensive items at Chanel is called the Diamond Forever handbag. Now, this luxurious and exclusive handbag is made of white alligator skin and is embellished with 334 diamonds weighing over 3.54 carats and set in 18 karat white gold. That plus a couple of dresses is going to drive up your cost per date average. Now, those of you who are online on Blog Talk Radio, look at the picture scroll and you'll see a picture of this. It's a white purse, a white alligator skin purse, and that's what I'm talking about here. You can look at this picture as well as all of the pictures that relate to today's story on Blog Talk Radio on the picture scroll. Okay? All right. Also, I see a viewer there on the chat line. If you're too shy to call in, you can also chat me up, and you can do so on blogtalkradio.com/DT Linda Gross. That's /DT Linda Gross, short for Dating Tips Linda Gross. All right. I want to hear from you. Oh, thanks for coming back on. I see that you've popped back on. Anyway, love to hear from you. All right. Tell me, is this guy crazy? Is he justified? Let's get more into the story. So if he has to use money to impress the date, it's no wonder that he has no dates at the end of this period. So whatever he does to earn that money, maybe he should use the same principle on dating. Basically, it boils down to confidence, what I call in my book, first C. So whether you're talking about dating or closing a business transaction, that person has to have confidence, okay? That's how you get the deal done in the boardroom. You need that same type of confidence in the bedroom as well. So first, despite what women say, no woman is going to stay with you long term solely on the basis of money. Sure, there are exceptions to the rule, and they are mostly gold diggers. But for the most part, women need more than just money. Listen up, guys. Pull up a chair. It's not the money. It's what the money represents. And as a rich guy, if you haven't figured that out, you're going to remain alone. He would have been way better off financially had he hired an expensive call girl. And if he were smart, he would have been better off asking the call girl what women want and learning from that interaction. But he didn't do that, did he? No, he did not. So let's see. Can this guy sue? Well, sure. You know, these days in our sue happy society, anyone can sue over anything. But can he win? Well, he'd have a better case if he had his terms in writing with the agency. Now, this guy seems way too stupid to have written down those terms in a contract. Perhaps her terms will say that she will deliver 3 dates per year, and if she did that, maybe she'll be off the hook. Now, she may have overstated her odds by saying that most of my clients end up in lasting relationships within 3 dates, when really perhaps the stat is only, for example, 47% of her clients do so. Now, whatever she is boasting, come on. To that I say, come on now. I used to watch Millionaire Matchmaker, and that person spent a lot of time prepping the guy to be date ready. I don't think a lot of matchmakers do this, but the girl on the TV show, she certainly did. From getting a stylist to grooming to psychologists and various other trainers, and even with all that posse of help, I would say that the TV show actress ratio, her success ratio was 0. In other words, none of her clients got matched up for more than a date or 2. So I don't know why the unexpected purchaser of such a transaction would be this naive. I mean, he's just not doing his homework. So, with the TV actress, with all her help, if her success ratio was 0, what makes you think you can beat those odds and get, a great date? Not only a great date, but, somebody to marry that you are interested in marrying within 2 or 3 dates. It's statistically probably not going to happen. Now, for his lunacy to spend this kind of money on these dates, to me, no, he just doesn't have a case. She didn't tell him to spend that much money on a date. So, to me, the only way you're going to learn about money and women is to act like you don't have any money. Hey guys, did you happen to listen to last week's show on the broke guys? How would you handle the date if you only had $20 to spend and that's it? That's how a guy learns how to be himself and how to present himself in front of women when it doesn't have anything to do with money. That's the place that you have to come from, even if you do have money, all right? That's how a guy learns. You have to practice on how to make all that work. By the way, if you need more help on this topic, I go into it in way more detail in my book, Mastering Women, The Real Truth About Women That Will Change Your Life Forever. When you interview guys and you ask guys, why do women pick you? Invariably, the guy will say money. Guess what? In all the dozens and dozens of pages in my book, there is not one chapter, there is not even probably one paragraph in the entire book on money, because it's not the money. More importantly, it's what the money represents, which is what I teach you in the book, meaning confidence. All right, so get the book. So easy to do. Go to Amazon, type in Mastering Women, Linda Gross, and it will pop up. You can download the ebook in a few seconds, and you can either have them ship you the paperback version, which most of my men highly recommend, because that way they can take a yellow highlighter and really accentuate the chapters that make a lot of sense to you and ones that you need more practice in, right? So make that happen. Okay, so if it were me, I would structure these dates, whether you're rich or not, as if you don't have the money. I'm not asking you to be a slob. I'm not asking you to be somebody that's homeless. Clean yourself up, look good, smell good, do all the right things, but don't flash the cash. So, for example, I would rent or buy a non-flashy car and play down who you are and what you do, because you have to win her over for you. If you've got nothing in the tool chest worth writing about, she's not going to stay around unless she's a gold digger. I mean, that's the exception to the rule. But what guy wants to settle down with a gold digger? Really? You're just being used like a piece of meat? No guy would want that, right? So I'll give you an example. One of the hardest lessons I have ever learned to do was at a job I had in my late 20s. The owner of the company asked if I could drop him off at the Porsche dealer for service at lunchtime, and I said, no problem. I wasn't double thinking this, right? I said, no problem, sure. After dropping him back to the office, he exclaimed, darn, if you own a car like this, I'm paying you too much money. At the time, I had a black Nissan Z. It wasn't that the car was all that expensive. It was more that I took care of it. Every weekend, I had some Q-tips, razor blades, and a bottle of Armor All fine detailing my car. Now, that car certainly did gleam from every angle. The owner of the company never knew what kind of car I drove ahead of that service trip. Plus, I'm thinking to myself, he had a mega compound on the sand in prime property in Malibu. What is he worried about me for? Little old stinky me, right? None of that stopped him from making that comment. Okay, so what I did was I was so upset I never parked my car in the garage again. I parked it 3 blocks away where no one in the company would see what kind of car I drove and would not be able to judge me ever again. So the moral of the story was don't show your cars until it's time to show your cards. Okay? So why am I telling you that story? Well, that's why I'm telling you to get a just a plain Jane kind of car when you pick her up, or downplay what it is that you have. You don't need to reveal all your sources and all your attributes on day one. You've got to make her think. You've got to make her earn it, importantly, because when she earns that, it means that she's worthy of being kept, right? Okay. All right. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to tell you when we get back from a break. Adrian writes to a legal service and asks, how do I sue a matchmaker? I guess he had a similar situation as well, and we'll listen to what Adrian's responses were. So call us up. You can do so, 323-642-1677, 323-642-1677, and we'll catch you right back after the break.
The Men's Advocate Show with Linda Gross. We will be discussing men's issues, dating, relationships, sex, women, fitness, health, business, men's hobbies, men's rights, and more. She will be talking about excerpts from her men's book, Mastering Women, too.
Hi, guys. You've heard her on the Men's Advocate Show. Linda Gross wants you to know what turns a woman on and makes her go wild, so she just can't help herself. Check out Linda's book, Mastering Women, Real Truth About Women That'll Change Your Life Forever. Linda gives you all the insider tips on how to catch a woman and, if you want, to keep her. In 4 easy steps, these proven techniques will make women just melt. Ever wonder why the girl you really liked seemed to be great when you met, then all of a sudden just goes cold on you and turns you off? Linda will also let you know what not to do on a date. Never blow it again by losing another hot woman. You don't have to be good looking or even have money. Her book, Mastering Women, is available in paperback and ebook. Men, Linda's on your side. So buy her book, Mastering Women. Buy it for now. And don't keep your women waiting another minute. Get Mastering Women today.
You've heard her on the Men's Advocate Show with Linda Gross. How can you help further? From her Facebook fan page of the same name. Hit the Shop Now button and save this link to your favorites. Make all your usual Amazon purchases, and some of the revenue will support her show at no additional cost to you. No book purchase required. Just start with this link every time. The Men's Advocate Show with Linda Gross thanks you.
Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. You're currently listening to the Men's Advocate Show with me, your host, Linda Gross. We are talking about an elite matchmaker who gets sued by this rich guy who says that they sent him on 6 dates, and he spent so much money, over $400,000 on 6 dates, and he's suing because he didn't get any results. Is he right? Is he nuts? I need you to call in and let me know what you think about the subject. All right, you can do so, 323-642-1677, 323-642-1677. Now, there's this guy by the name of Adrian who writes to a legal service, and he asks, how do I sue a matchmaker who took my $3,500 but failed to provide any service? So he goes on to say, shortly after a breakup, when I was vulnerable, he saw a small family matchmaking service, and it caught his attention through an internet ad. They promised him that they would get him on dates quickly and get him married in no time. I should have known it sounded too good to be true. After signing up, after putting up the upfront money, they just sent me a few matches every couple of months. They forgot who I was, how old I was, not to mention what I was looking for. He says, I'm a 30-year-old medical doctor who is a busy professional looking for a serious relationship. Okay, so that being said, they were sending him women in their 40s, 50s, smokers with children. Even when I told them I was looking for something similar to my age range and values, they disregarded all that. Needless to say, they told me I was being too picky. At one point, I was just shocked when my exasperated matchmaker told me to just go see an escort. So Adrian asks, what am I to do? So lawyer one responds. He says, well, they may very well argue that they have fulfilled their duties by supplying you leads. Lawyer number two wrote back, say, you could try small claims court because that may be your next stop. Lawyer number three wrote in to say you could try hiring a lawyer to issue a demand letter. Lawyer number four says you may not get money, but don't underestimate the power of online reviews. Don't get revenge. Just be truthful. And lawyer number five says, think it over. Be prepared that your lawsuit against them will be a public record and thus be reviewable by anyone, including a newspaper. If you do not want others to know that you were trying to find a spouse through a matchmaking service, you waive your right to privacy when you file a lawsuit. On another note, one divorcee successfully won her case against a matchmaking service because they claimed there were a substantial number of wealthy male members actively engaging in its matchmaking services who were a sufficient match for the claimant's desires. Now, it turns out that the matchmaking service only had 100 men in the pool, which is not enough to be deemed substantial by the judge who ruled in her favor. So the niche exclusive agency was not a mainstream mass market online dating service. The owner claimed that we are not going to have thousands of members because there simply aren't thousands of single, wealthy, high caliber prospects out there. Oh well, the owner lost the case because her advertising or her claim to the client was, we have a substantial number of men who match your criteria, and that was not true. All right, so the moral of the story for her was, don't overpromise because it might come bite you, as they say. So who exactly is a matchmaking candidate? Well, I want you to meet Jason. Now, this is a different story than Mr. X from New York, but he goes on to say, anyway, meet Jason. He writes, I've lived in LA on and off for about 4 years now, originally from the East Coast. During most of that time, I've been wildly, definitively, stubbornly single. And if I'm being honest, single has been my natural state for most of my adult life. I think I'm a decent enough guy, but I never seem to make dating work. As an Angelino in the modern era, dating has mostly revolved around apps. Oh, the apps, and there are plenty of them. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge. It seems like every month there's a new one. I download them all and do a whole lot of swiping, and yet nothing appears. His thumb's got plenty of exercise, but not much more. In the past 2 years, he's had maybe 3 matches that turned into dates. I got stood up once, and the other 2 were each very awkward, stilted dates. And then he was just done with all that, done with the dating apps, right? So my assessment of this situation is the dating game is tough. if you don't know the rules of play. The most important talent is to be able to talk to women in a way that women like to be talked to. Not about sports, not about something that you're good at, not about something that interests you, because the way she reads that is you're just being selfish and from her point of view, boring. So you have to connect with her with something that is relevant to her. What I call in my book, Mastering Women, the Real Truth About Women That Will Change Your Life Forever, I call this trait connect with her. So how do you do that when a person is a stranger? Or even if she's not a stranger, but you haven't gone out yet, you've just not familiarized yourself with her on that level. Well, that's what my book teaches you to do. It's a skill. It's a skill that can be easily learned. My book teaches you to zero in on something that you each have in common. You've got commonality there. That's what creates the connection, and you use that as your springboard. So if you want to find out more, better check out my book because guys who don't do this, who don't connect with her, she's not going to be interested and she's not going to be responding to you. I want to thank you for joining our show today. You're currently listening to the Men's Advocate Show with me, your host, Linda Gross. If you happen to have missed last week's show, we were referencing why women stay with broke men. So many women think a man who isn't contributing financially is a handicap. What is his purpose? Who needs him? He's a burden. It is actually easier without him are all common phrases that we often hear. So what does this broke guy have that we can learn from? That's what we were talking about. All right. So you can catch up on last week's show. And by the way, any and all of my archive shows, all you have to do is Google the Men's Advocate Show with Linda Gross. That's the Men's Advocate Show with Linda Gross. You can catch the archive shows right here on Blog Talk Radio, or you can also catch them on SoundCloud and TuneIn. And a lot of my men say they catch me on wherever their favorite podcast is, that somehow or another we get access to Apple sites and other sites as well. So just check us out. Google us. You might be able to find us on a podcast app that you're already using. All right. If you like our show, please show your love. Lots of ways to do that. You can listen, call, subscribe, chat, like our fan page, follow, comment, share, tell a friend, advertise with me, start with my Amazon link, and download my app, and you can buy my book on Amazon. Again, that's Mastering Women. So we're usually here each and every Tuesday around 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, and we will catch you next week on the Men's Advocate Show. Bye for now.